Hello everybody and welcome to the second Dev Talk for Battlegrounds Season 4. My name is Gia.
And I'm Mitchell.
And today is launch day. We've got 6 out of our 10 minion types ready to roll. Beasts, dragons, elementals, undead, Murloc, and Naga. Mitchell, how did we do all of this?
I don't know. But we've got a lot of minion types to talk about, so let's jump into it right away with Murlocs.
That's right, Murlocs have been around since the very beginning of Battlegrounds with a pretty consistent identity of battlecry, cycling cards, and also poisonous. And we've already talked about how we're replacing the latter with venomous, so let's jump into what else Murlocs are doing now, and that is the hand buff space, starting with Upbeat Flutist, which is one of those cards that goes off every X turns, and in this case it will give a random minion in your hand plus 9 health.
Yeah, and it's not the only way that you can buff your minions in your hand, but there's also Scourfin, which on Death Rattle will give a random minion in your hand +5/+5. And this can work really well because there's lots of ways you can get extra synergy. You can use it with Titus Rivenair to double it up. You can use Macaw to be able to get extra triggers. And you can also taunt it to reliably make sure that it always dies.
That's right, and one of the best minions to buff is Bream Counter because that's a minion that also scales itself whenever you play a Murloc, and that means it's great cross synergy between the Battlecry comp and the hand buff comp. And when your Bream Counter gets very big in hand, the best thing to do with it is play base skill.
Yeah, base skill is a way that you can summon a minion from your hand, the highest health minion in your hand, for just that combat only. So you can use that gigantic Bream counter that you've been building up all game and get it into play, but you can also use this to essentially be access to an 8th minion on your board.
Getting tons of swarms of minions is something that Murlocs are doing new, as well as Operatic Belcher, but we've already mentioned that in a previous video, so let's put the spotlight on Coral Murgler, which is going to gain the stats of all the minions in your hand at the start of combat. So if you've got a huge Bream counter in there, it's also working towards buffing your Murgler.
We're also making a couple changes to Murlocs, existing minions. The one I really want to highlight though is Young Murk-Eye. Previously it would just buff it would trigger the battle cry of the Murloc to the left of this, but now it is the minion to the left of this, which opens a lot of new synergy opportunities for any other minion types that you normally wouldn't be able to get multiple triggers out of.
Speaking of other minion types, about time we moved on to Naga now, which have a very dynamic duo in Zesty Shaker and Deep Blue Crooner.
Yeah, and actually the best way to understand this one is actually to see it in action. So Deep Blues is a new spellcraft attached to Deep Blue Crooner, and it will give a minion +1/+1 until next combat. But every time you play it, your future Deep Blues get better. This applies to all Deep Blues, the ones generated off of this minion, the ones you find in the future, the ones off the Golden. They all will continue to scale. So the first one you play, it gives +1/+1, then it gives +2/+2, then 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 20/20. It can scale to the skies.
Absolutely, it's got great art and a great voice line to match, so very excited to play with that one. Moving on to Beasts now, we have an even bigger focus than before on summoning during combat.
Yeah, so the star of the show here is Banana Slammer, which will double the stats of any beast you summon in combat. So those little 2/2 rats are now coming out as 4/4s, and are a little bit more threatening. But on top of that, there's Octosari Rap God on tier 6, which will continue. Which, when it dies, it will summon a tentacle that gets bigger every time you summon minions in combat. So as you can see, it might drop down a huge 30/30, but it can then get doubled on top of that by Banana Slammer, and then it's a 60/60.
And those buffs will persist between combats, so there's really no limit to how hard you drop the mic with Beasts. Moving on now to Dragons, though, we have a change to Caligos. Instead of only triggering when you play a Battlecry minion, now it will give your Dragons +1/+1 whenever you trigger a Battlecry, meaning that with Brand Bronzebeard on board, you get double as much effect.
You can also use things that trigger extra battle cries, such as Shutterwalk's Hero Power, or Murk-Eye Change that we just mentioned, as well as the new dragon, Disco Shuffler, as additional ways to trigger your battle cries to get even more stats out of your Caligos.
Very exciting stuff there, but moving on to Elementals now, we've got a little surprise for everyone on tier 6. It is Elemental of Surprise, which can triple with any elemental, meaning you just need to have a pair of any other elemental. You buy your Elemental of Surprise, and it will combine into the base minion, but with the Surprise's Divine Shield applied on top of it.
It can be really powerful for being able to get these big stats onto your minions, but then the Divine Shield on top of that can open up some new synergies, as well as protecting those stats from things like Venomous.
Very exciting stuff. And last but not least, we have Undead here with a modest shakeup, but a card that I know you're very proud of.
I know, I'm very proud of Radio Star. I think it's a really fun little reference. But for Undead, we decided to kind of play it a little bit safe this time. You know, there's still the new kid on the block, and we're really happy with how they turned out. So we're giving them a couple new toys to play with, such as Xylobones that will gain health every time you summon a minion in combat, which can also work well as a nice cross synergy with all the beast summoning.
That's right. And I believe that covers it, Mitchell. Whew. Can we just go play now?
Yeah, actually you can. If you go on live right now, you can go play with these 6 minion types we talked about, but that's not the end of the fun. We are actually rolling out 4 more minion types over the next few weeks. So if you actually tune back in 2 days on May 11th, you can hear us talking about pirates.
Arr. Okay, bye.